want to place a bet on the Pittsburgh Kneelers.
How much you want to wager? What's this? We deal in cash only.
It's the Holy Grail. It's worth a ton.
Well, that's it, folks. The Pittsburgh Kneelers had defeated the Tampa Bay Boutonniers in what was a strange, lopsided affair. The Boutonniers seemed cursed from the beginning, with unexplained drop passes, tripping over themselves on returns, and controversial calls from the officials. Now let's take a look at some key plays of the game. Williams is wide open. Oh, he dropped it. Johnson has Williams in the back of the end zone. He's got it. Touchdown.
After reviewing the play, the pass has been ruled incomplete.
Taylor is all alone down the sideline. Looks like he's going to score. Oh, that's sad. Well, you saw how it all went down. Now let's check into the post-game press conference to see what the players have to say.
I'd like to thank my Savior, Jesus Christ. It felt like he was really out there with us tonight, battling in the trenches. I was worried because I missed the team prayer before the game. I was late getting out of the locker room because I was taking this huge steamer, like huge. So I'm just glad me missing the team prayer didn't let our team down.
I don't know what happened out there. This game was so important to us and to our fans. A young kid came up to me this week after practice. He had been diagnosed with leukemia and said his wish was for us to win the game for him. I went home that night and prayed, hoping to give the kid his wish. It just wasn't our night, I guess.
If you've lived, you have suffered. We're all suffering to varying degrees. Even these varying degrees aren't really necessary to differentiate because our lives and the spectrum of our individual experiences are, of course, subjective. Life is hard. It's traumatic. Many days can simply be a grind. It's easy to lose sight of the wonder, the magic, the love, and the support that's available. With the world being smaller than ever, we're exposed to people's sufferings in ways that we couldn't imagine before. We also have ways to add to others' suffering and our own in ways we couldn't before. As we hash out the ills of society, consume the news, the media, and all that highlights the impending collapse of a functional democracy and humanity itself, we often get caught in the cycles of blame, of accusation, of resentment, and the fear of others. In a quote that was similar to that of Plato, Robin Williams said, "Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind always." As we peruse social media and label perceived political and societal adversaries, it is imperative we reflect on this idea. Even the social media troll is suffering. Those that delight in the discomfort of others and chaos of a world in strife, suffering themselves. That mindset comes from the suffering, trauma, indoctrination, and provoked hatred and ignorance, all of which cause suffering, whether it's realized or unrealized. Have patience, be kind, and if you can't, simply try to scroll on by. Your pain is not a test or a badge of honor. It's not a rite of passage. It's an opportunity to understand. Your pain can be a door to greater harmony, but it must be felt, not avoided. If we feel it fully and not hide it, cover it, or compensate for it, we can channel it into something of great value, of inspiration, and of healing. I channel my suffering into art, into humor, into self-reflection, and a desire to support others. But if I ignore it, if I repress it or dismiss it as just a part of life, there is a good chance I won't put myself fully into these experiences. So today I'd like to go through a mindfulness exercise with you, focusing on pain and discomfort. Now, if you're feeling particularly blissful and pain-free in this moment, save this for later. No need to interrupt your groove. So for this, we're going to pay attention to our physical pain. It's an easy place to start, as it's a very tangible experience that can offer a process to address the mental and emotional pains we also experience. So we're going to start by just scanning our body. We just want to be present and bring ourselves fully into the body, not just experiencing as a head moving through space. So take a moment, straighten that spine, draw your shoulders up to your ears, bring them back and let them fall. And just bring your awareness to the bottoms of your feet. Feel the surface of the ground, your feet's connection. And just be present with it. There's no need to move. There's no need to do anything. We're just feeling the soles of our feet, experiencing them, observing them, seeing that they're there. And now the heels of the feet and the toes, the tops of the feet, the ankles, the shins and calves, the knees, the hamstrings and quadricep of the upper leg, the hips, glutes, and pelvis, the abdomen and lower back, the chest and upper back, shoulders, the bicep and tricep of the upper arms, the elbows, the forearms, the wrists, the palms of the hands, the backs of the hands, and the fingers, and up to the neck, chin, jaw, and mouth, cheeks, ears, nose, eyes, eyebrows, the temple, the forehead, around the sides and back of the head, the top of the head. And now be present with your whole body at once, from head to toe. And just feel it. Whatever feels tight or uncomfortable, or if you're experiencing physical pain, muscle soreness, or an injury, what I'd like you to do now is focus only on that. Find that place in your body where you feel the most discomfort. All we're going to do is just feel it. What does it feel like? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it tight? Is it dry? Is it congested? Does the pain radiate from a certain area? Most importantly, just feel this discomfort. Thoughts, images, ideas, stories start to come up. Just gently redirect your mind back to the pain that you're feeling, the discomfort that you feel, the unease that you might feel. Just for now. And now, as you're aware of this discomfort, be aware of your breath. Breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Natural breath, not trying to elongate it, trying to deepen it or do anything at all. Just experience the breath. And imagine breathing into this discomfort area. It's painful or tight, whatever area feels off that you're experiencing. Send your breath to that body part. Now take a deep breath in through the nose, as deep as you can. Hold it and let it out through the mouth in a big sigh. Feel your body relax. Take a second deep breath, deeper than the first. Deeper, deeper, deeper. Hold it and let it out. One more deep breath, deeper than the first two. Breathe in until you feel like you're going to pop. Hold it. Let it out. Sometimes the avoidance of the pain, of the suffering, of the conflict, of the worry causes more stress than the actual experience itself. So instead of shying away from it, sit with it for a moment. Now, obviously, if it's something excruciating or needs medical attention, go get yourself help. That too is addressing it, is being present with something, being present with your suffering. And so we can use these as examples on how to navigate life. It's not always going to be good, but it's not always going to be bad. Learning to work with that, to flow with it, will create greater harmony. And you can use the pain, the discomfort, the trauma, all of those things that we experience that are considered negative and harmful, channel that into something productive and good, positive, transforming that energy of a negative emotion into something beautiful. Speaking of which, my guest today, Conni Lee, is a comedian who has learned to channel her grief into humor. And her story is wonderful. And we'll be right back after this with my interview with Conni Lee.
Dick Van Dyke just turned 100. Yeah, his wife is 40 years younger than he is. Yeah, of course, right? Oh, but I asked my 30-year-old son to set me up with one of his friends. And suddenly I'm the weirdo. But he was 86 when they got married. And I think if I married an 86-year-old, I would definitely just stay with the standard 5-year warranty. And when they asked her, or told her this marriage will never last, I think that's when she put down the money for the extended warranty. Going on 100, and I got to thinking, I wonder if her friends text her every morning, is he dead yet? So I took my son shopping one time when they were preteens, and we're in the mall, and I said, before we go home, I need to buy some thongs. And they were just panicked, Mom. And then I thought, oh my gosh, shoes, flip-flops, that's what I need. You guys know I don't buy new underwear unless I'm looking for you a new daddy. My son, now that he's grown, is getting married, and his fiance asked me to officiate the wedding. Said she needed something old. But then she told me she found me on Instagram, which you all can too, and watched a few of my videos, which you all can too, and died laughing until she fell asleep. So I'm more effective than NyQuil, and certainly I'm a lot cheaper than her usual bottle of tequila. But I went to the University of Oklahoma, Boomer. Right, I do that in San Antonio, and they say, sucks. But I studied engineering, and it was a pretty hard thing to go through. The curriculum was pretty challenging, but I made good grades, so much so that a fellow male classmate of mine accused me of sleeping with a professor to get those grades. If only he'd been smart enough to know, I was saving my flower for the university president.
I'm here with comedian Conni Lee, and I'm grateful to have her on the show. How are you, Conni?
I'm doing great, Rob. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. It's good to have you. So you've been performing stand-up comedy for 2 years. What initially compelled you to get on stage?
So my comedy journey started with improv, and I just kind of fell into that and just loved the freedom and all that kind of stuff. A workshop was offered in stand-up at the improv studio or theater, and so I just on a whim decided I'd take it and see what it was about, and um, really enjoyed it. I learned about the joke structure and a lot of things about how to make people laugh, and just took off. So
Well, that's pretty cool. What was one of the most important things you learned about joke structure?
um how important it is to really get the audience set up, but to not let them wait so long for the punchline that they lose interest. So it's all of a timing kind of thing. So,
I like that. So how did you feel the first time you stepped up there? What was going on inside?
oh, well, the first time I did stand up,
Mhm.
um, it was so in the class I took, it started on a Sunday, and then the instruction was to go to an open mic and perform. And we had no lessons on jokes or anything, so I didn't know what to prepare at all. And went to a place, and they were so welcoming, and everybody was so supportive. Oh, you'll do great, all this kind of stuff. And my improv partner, she came to be with me in the audience, and had it not been for her, I don't know that I would have gotten up on stage. But once I got up there, then I realized I was by myself, because I do improv with at least two people. There's always someone else on stage, and doing stand up, there's nobody. You're looking around, and there's like nobody except you. So if you freeze, there's nobody to pick up the dialogue or anything. So that took me a few times to get used to, just doing it alone. So, but it was
I'd
fun,
imagine.
and had thunderous applause afterwards, and and then people would come up afterwards and give me advice, and encourage me and stuff. So it was a great introduction into that community. So,
That's neat. Kind of thrown into the water, sink or swim on the first time then.
well, I kind of do that to myself anyway, because
Mhm.
I, like when I took improv, I literally saw a Facebook ad for it and thought, well, why not? And I'm retired and stuff. So I was like, okay, let's go see what it's like. And the first class I was hooked, and that was in 2019. So,
Okay.
um, seeing something about stand up, it's like, yeah, okay, let's try it. I'm just kind of I'll try anything once, but it takes, depending on how that one time goes, I'll either not do it again, or I'll keep going. So,
Well, that's a great perspective to have. And I imagine it's not necessarily about the immediate outcome, but how you feel doing it, right? Like
yeah,
that first
yeah.
time
I
you
mean,
do something, when you say you'll do something that first time.
yeah, because it was the same thing. I did a marathon in 2004, and that was literally a postcard I got in the mail that said the Stroke Association was looking for marathon runners, and there was a information meeting, and I went to that, and made friends, and ended up finishing the marathon. So, it was, it's not something I want to repeat, but
That's that's an intense thing to train for. That's impressive.
yeah, it's a lot of time. And yeah, it was a lot of this stuff is the season that you're in, right? And how your mind is and your heart are working to either say, no, that's, not it, or yeah, let's go try it and stuff. So, being in that season when the marathon came about, it came about at a good time. My older son was out of the house. The younger one was, middle school, and late middle school, I guess, and kind of on his own a little bit. And so I had time to work and come home and train and, eat whatever I want. That was the good part.
Yeah, yeah. Expending all that energy and putting all those miles in, you can eat, absolutely. Well,
Yeah,
I think we're
yeah,
finding out very early on in this interview that you're very much an adventurer, just willing to try things and give them a shot. Both stepping up on stage and running a marathon are intense endeavors that a lot of
yeah.
people shy away from. What do you think it is, either in your life early on, or what kind of led you to this style of approaching life? With just, hey, I'll try anything once and see how it feels.
Yeah, I think my parents were from the World War II generation, and my mom was very much a traditional housewife. And um, she always had these wishes and dreams, but she never fulfilled any of them. And like traveling, pretty simple things like just traveling and stuff. My dad was not a traveler, and so and even after he passed, she still wouldn't go traveling. So um I think it's just seeing her life and how it could have been different. I also have lost a lot of close people to me. My son died at 25. My best friend, my first cousin, she died right before she was to turn 70, and her sister died a couple of years ago, and at like 72, 73. And then I've got friends that died in their 60s, and I mean it's like there really is something to, live your life to its fullest, because you just don't know what tomorrow, brings. And I do a lot of this in memory of them. I don't want to be, laying around and, watching TV, or just not being some kind of productiveness, um, in honor of them, and what they missed out on. I bring them with me every time, for whatever I do. So,
I can understand that. Grief definitely teaches us all a lot of lessons. And one of those major lessons is we have now. We just have now, and to
mhm,
do what we can with it.
right.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you were also an engineer for 40 years. How
hmm
did that contribute to your comedic aspirations and the material you use?
So, my comfort on stage came about through a career where, everybody thinks that engineers are just calculating things, but you always have to write a report, or you always have to explain what you're doing to somebody. And I was given the pleasure of having to present to a lot of our customers. We were on defense contracts, and so we uh, were uh, space contracts and stuff. So we'd either have NASA or the Air Force, people that would want to know how we're spending their money and what we're doing. So,
Mhm, mhm.
so I got really comfortable with going in front of a group of maybe 100 people at a time for those meetings, and taking questions and having to, you know, answer answer those questions and stuff. Um, so yeah, it was. It's also, very male. It still is very,
Mhm, mhm,
and
mhm.
so, the guys I worked with, they would get so serious sometimes and just so, deep diving into things. And then I would just have to release the pressure and just say, make some smart aleck remark, to get them to kind of, oh yeah, this is work. And that's all it is work, But so it's just through that. I just was a social person at work. I hated sitting in a cube, where I had no contact, and so I would get up and roam around a little bit, and just chat up some people and stuff, and then get back and go to work. So you know,
Well, the art of levity is very valuable in those situations. And I'm sure you learn to think quickly on your feet and pivot.
Mm,
And that's a great experience to have when you're going to step out on stage in front of people and just kind of
yeah.
give it a go.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
And the improv really, really helped me. I wish I had taken it years ago because it teaches you to be in the moment, to erase whatever's going on in your head, whether it's, oh, I've got to go get groceries after work, or I've got to go, I've got this other thing. I had a nightmare last night, whatever it is.
mhm.
And through improv, you clear all of that out, and then through training and stuff, and then you're able to be in the moment and react to the questions instead of jumping to a conclusion. So,
Oh, I like that. Can you maybe describe, and maybe you pretty much touched on it already, that if you have a different mindset when you are going to do improv or stand up?
um,
Like, do you
hmm.
approach it mentally in a different way?
So the big difference between improv and stand up is that improv is unscripted,
Mhm.
and we just literally, take a suggestion from the audience and then we just make up stuff. Stand up is scripted. So it's, you have to learn your jokes, you have to memorize, and work on that. And I've found that to be um hard to adapt to. I'm getting there to where I can, I know my jokes enough now that it's kind of just a little bit of a refresher and then I'm ready to go, and the order is what, you have to. So in that respect, also you're writing your own material for stand up, so which you don't have to do for improv. So
Mhm.
yeah, stand
Mhm.
up's got a lot more to it. So
Yeah, I would say so. A lot more preparation.
mhm. Yes. Yes, and then
Mm.
you worry about stage presence and, if someone, wants to interact with you and, an audience member wants to interact with you on stage, which I think is fun.
Mhm.
I've not had anybody be mean to me or anything. I've had a drunk lady one time and, I just kind of, said, okay, I'm going to go on with my show now. You be quiet. So,
I like that. Just move on. Just
yeah, we're
de-escalate
moving
and
on
move
now,
on.
lady. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
good way to deal with that.
Yeah.
So who are your comedic heroes or comics that inspired you?
I really like Kathleen Madigan,
Mhm. Mhm.
Jen Gaffigan.
Mhm.
Uh, my son turned me on to Anthony Jeselnik, uh, who is a very dark comedian, and
Mhm.
um, and he's actually coming to town here, and so we've got tickets to go see him. So that'll be a lot of fun. Um, and then there was somebody else. I can't remember. I like a lot of them. Brian Regan is another one. He's a clean
Oh,
comic,
yeah, Brian Reed.
but he comes across as not clean, I guess if that's possible, but all his material is clean. So,
Yeah.
so that's good too. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's a unique comedian. I enjoy him. One
Mhm.
of the bits that
Mhm.
stands out, and I think it's earlier maybe in his career, where he was talking about the stress working on a butterfly sanctuary. And just it's one of my favorite bits.
Well, I went to a butterfly sanctuary thing, and it got me giggling because the butterfly is a symbol of freedom. And here they
Mm.
are trapped in this big building. So it's
The
just
irony is
ironic.
very thick. Yes.
Irony is alive. Yes, yes. Another one of my favorite comedians and one that I, look to for, for joke, how to do a joke and that kind of thing is Susan Rice. She's from the West Coast and she's been in comedy since the 80s and is still going fairly strong. I think she's backed off a little bit on her schedule and stuff, but yeah, I just think she's pretty funny. So
Susan Rice. I'll have to, I'm not as
Mhm.
familiar with her. I know the name, but I'm trying to picture her right now.
Yeah, she's kind of a petite lady that has white hair and the big glasses, the big frame glasses and stuff. And
I
uh,
think it's
she
jogging my
she
memory
talks.
a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, what would you say is one of your favorite experiences performing comedy?
Oh, um, hmm. There's a lot. I'm not trying to think of pull one out and stuff, but
No, you're fine.
I've been to a couple of comedy festivals, and those were the first one I went to was an all female comedy festival in San Antonio, and I just loved it. The meeting other female comedians and commiserating about different things, and hearing them perform, watching them perform, and then them watching me and giving me really good feedback and stuff. Um, I like those experiences. I've had performances where where the audience was just with me the whole way and just laughed, the entire time, and that a lot of that's why I do this. We had an improv performance a couple of weeks ago, and we just killed it. It was my improv partner Susan and I, and just the two of us up on stage, and we did this whole crazy uh, scenes and stuff to do with getting sized for a wedding dress. And it was, we were having fun, we were cracking up, the audience was having fun. So I think, I guess, to boil it down, my favorites are when the laughter just seems to go on.
So, on the flip side of that, what would you say is one of your worst experiences performing comedy?
Well, we always have an opportunity to do what they call bomb, where nobody laughs, at your jokes and stuff. And that happened at an open mic at a comedy club, and I felt just really bad because I hadn't been doing this for very long, and friends of mine that were there, they said some guy came in and was very loud, only I couldn't hear him. All I got when I re-looked at the video was that I did look up, so there was some noise that he was making, I guess, that did make me. And when I recognized that, then I just forgot what I was doing. I was in the middle of a joke and just couldn't remember where it was. um, People in the audience, they started, clapping for me and stuff. It's just encouragement and stuff. And I still felt so bad because I hadn't watched the video I was taking of my performance to get the whole, what really happened. So in my mind, it was something I did. My jokes were bad, or, I just didn't know what else it could be. And so I'm coming out of the comedy club, and one of the comics, I didn't know him very well at the time, but he said, "Hey, there's another open mic. Are you coming?" And I just was like, I don't know. And then I got in the car and I was like, why not? And so I went to that other open mic, and it went a whole lot better. So I ended the night on a high note. So yeah.
Oh, that's a good overall experience, though. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the community um, is just, it can be a lot of male dominance. You had Jamie on your last episode that I saw, and she talked about being a sausage fest, and yeah, it can be like that in a bro culture, but I've made friends, and so we all, are supportive of each other and stuff. So
Well, that segues perfectly into what I was going to ask as a follow up is what challenges have you faced as a female comedian?
uh, not only female but aged,
I was going
an
to ask
older
that as
female
well. Yeah.
comedian. Yeah, yeah, and um, I think it's just people have given me opportunities to be on shows and things like that. It's been kind of tough to break through at comedy clubs to have roles at open mics, and there's one comedy club, might just give me 4 minutes time to do an open mic. Another one gives me more time to actually close the night out, with a longer set and stuff. And so it's just kind of, my son, I was kind of like, oh man, I don't get to do this or that. He said, you need to go where you're wanted. And I said, you're right. And that was really, it's like, don't worry about those places that seem to be shutting you out. Go towards the light, go
Yeah.
towards the ones that appreciate you and stuff. So just finding that out and trying to build a community of women who do comedy is kind of hard because there's not very many of us. So
Hmm. You have to stick together and help each other out. So, would you
yeah,
say
that's why
that? Oh, go ahead. I
things like
apologize.
no, that's okay. Um, the festival that I went to last year that was all women. That's why it was so important, I think, to have that. And we really need to have more women only festivals, and there just aren't a lot, So that I feel can be a little bit of a constraint to getting into other festivals and taking advantage of opportunities. But I'm a fighter. I fought it for 40 years in engineering. And when I realized how male stand up is, I was like, why am I beating myself up again?
Right.
So
You've been there, done
I guess
that.
I'm used yeah, I'm used to it though.
Oh. So, do you think there's a bigger obstacle for you as a female comedian or the age difference?
I tend to think the age plays into it more, because, uh, depends on what the producers of the shows and what kind of audience that they're hoping to bring. And, there's a few older comedians in the area here, but you know, it just seems like the opportunities to be on shows is limited. And my experience has been, younger audiences that show up for open mics, for example, they laugh at my stuff just as if I was a 30-year-old, out there doing it. So
It's just about getting the opportunity and realizing that you relate to any type of audience.
yeah, and so you have to make your own opportunities sometimes too. Um, So yeah, I'm producing a show in April for the first time. So, and I got to pick who comes, and so
So,
we'll
is
see how
this
it
the
goes.
first show that this will be the first show that you've produced?
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's at a little winery in a small town where they don't have opportunities for things like improv and stand up and stuff. So they're gonna give us a shot, and we've got a really good cast of characters to be in the show. So yeah, it'll be a lot of fun.
I like that. When is that coming up?
It's April 18th
So,
at
coming
the
up soon.
Shakespeare Wine Company in Chickasha, Oklahoma.
Oh, Chickasha, Oklahoma. The Shakespeare Wine Company. I like it.
Hmm.
It sounds great.
Shout out.
Yeah, I like that. I'll have to check that place out. It sounds interesting. Well, I think
Yeah.
this is a good place to take a break, and we'll be right back
Okay.
with comedian Conni Lee.
And I retired a few years ago from the Boeing company. I have a friend of mine, a coworker. Thank you for coming out, Sharon. And it's been a few years. It was right before all the issues started happening with the planes. I know, it's like I leave and the company, starts crashing. So, but people come up to me now and say, what's going on with the company? Like I got the inside track still, or ever. But I want to let you guys in on a little secret. They don't let women near those planes. Can you imagine if they did? A plane would take off from one city, land in another, fully intact. I mean, is that even possible? I think not. And then they've got women pilots, and here we go, a whole new set of problems we got to solve. First one is we got to rename the cockpit. But I think I got my technical savviness from my dad. He got his first computer in the late 90s. And back then, the web browsers didn't have the ad blockers and the pop-up blockers like they do now. So you would launch a website and just your screen would fill with all of these things. And he called me to come over and, because it was locked up for some reason. So I went over, and the first thing I did was look at the history on the web browser. My dad was watching porn. 80 years old, watching porn. So you might ask, Connie, what kind of porn was he watching? You all being a curious bunch, I'm sure. Lesbian porn. And when I think about it, he did drive a Subaru once. So I'm thinking that's some solidarity going on there. But I don't know where he found these websites, so I blame his World War II buddies that he met at the mall for coffee. They weren't talking about the old days. Hey, have you seen this new website here? XXX.com. Yeah, guessing. So I went to Italy last year and was on a trip with 15 women over the age of 50. That's a lot of estrogen and hormone replacement therapy. I thought I was going to restart my period. And it was really bad because all I packed were white pants. I did bring pads, but they were for something else. And traveling's expensive, so I'm thinking, how am I going to make money, right? So I thought about an OnlyFans account. And, then I found a new thing called OnlyGrams. So now you can buy a picture of me pulling a hot pan of chocolate chip cookies out of the oven, holding a cigarette, with a pot holder that says, "Bake it hot like Grammy."
And we're back with comedian Conni Lee. And she touched upon that you've had a lot of loss that has inspired a lot of the things that you do in your life. As a suicide loss survivor, you are currently writing a book about humor through grief. Tell us about the book and describe your writing process in this project.
Yeah. So I've written this book several times, and it just never seems to, be the right thing. It started out as a memoir and then a self-help book for those recovering from traumatic grief. Um, but I decided to try to tell a story about how, humor is very important for grief. I've when I took improv, one of my classmates had lost his wife a few months before he started the class, and he even said how it really helped him, to get past that. Um, a lot of it is getting rid of the stress hormone in your body and stuff, and you can do that through crying. But, you just get so tired of crying all the time, and, my son, Damien, died by suicide. And it just was, just, I tell people I put miles and miles and miles on my recliner because that's all I could do for weeks and weeks and weeks was just sit and rock, and cry, but there were moments that laughter was used, like I had, about how I'd said at work, to release the stress and stuff. And sometimes, you know, funny things you observe just kind of pop up and you laugh. And I want the book to give people permission to laugh in their grief. It's not that you don't miss the person. It's not that you're sorrowful. It's that I think your body just needs a break, you know?
It does. It's important to realize that laughter is just as sacred as crying in those moments.
Mm, mhm. Yeah. And, he was a funny kid and he died when he was 25. But, I go back and think about some of those moments with him and times when he had me just doubled over laughing, to where I was crying, but through laughter, and his brother too, was, the two of them, we just had some really good moments and stuff and shared some really, special times and stuff. So going back over those and just laughing at that, is good relief too. So.
It's very important. It's a very, very tough loss to have. Would you like to tell us a little bit
Yeah,
about Damien?
yeah, yeah. He came to me in second grade and asked if he could take violin lessons. And I was like, where'd that come from? And so I got him enrolled and he kept up with violin and then later string bass in high school. And, just never had to really bother him about practicing or, rehearsing or anything. He just loved it, and he loved music. He liked to read. Um, you know, he left 3 children behind when he died, and he was there with me when I did the marathon. Um, and the marathon was in Disney World, and he went with me to that. And this was a real trooper, but he was so proud of me when I went across the finish line, and he was standing right there. So he was one of the first people I was able to hug at the end of that. You cut.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello, hello? Can you see me? Can you hear me? Low, low, low. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay, so then, so the EF5 tornado hit the hospital that my grandchildren and Damien's wife were at head on. They were able to take cover in a chapel with pews over their heads and stuff. But Damien saw the tornado coming, and so he was in a safe place watching it go across, and then he drove to the hospital, and he just very shakily, he told me, he said, "Mom, it looks like a war zone." And I was really afraid he was going to have a flashback of some sort and then be incapacitated himself. Um, but they reunited. Everybody was fine. That way, the tornado did not. It went north of his house a couple of blocks, so they had damage and power outages for a long time. But outside of that, they were unscathed, thankfully. But later in 2013, my mother passed away, and Damien took that really hard. He stayed with her until the funeral home came to get her as she was in a nursing home. And then, in October of 14th, 2013, it was a cloudy, kind of rainy day, and that's when he died. So um, it's been really hard to, you can't fathom the deep amount of grief that you feel when you learn that your son has died. And I was able to find an organization. Even though I was not in the military, Damien was, and this was related to his service. I tried to find some kind of military support, and found a group called the Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, or TAPS, and they are a national nonprofit who support military loss survivors. They have special camps for the children of um, of the of the lost. They have different programs for adults as well. One of their programs is a peer mentor program. I was matched with a lady who lived in Colorado whose son had also died by suicide a couple of years before Damien did. And she was able to validate a lot of what I was feeling because when you are hit with that, you've got all this, your body just changes, your mind looks at things differently. You just don't know, there's times when you don't know that you're sane or not, and having a person who's been through that in the same position, being a mother, she literally, I believe that she saved my life a lot, not a lot, but there are some who just can't take the loss and then they die. And, it was real important to get that help. And, as the grandchildren grew, I started taking them to regional meetings that TAPS had, and they would go to their good grief camp, which Snoopy's the little icon that they use for that. And they divide them off by grade or age. And the first year that they went, my oldest grandson, I had never seen him cry. He was like 4 years old when Damien died, and I'd never seen him cry or have any remorse. He would ask questions about his dad, but I never saw him any kind of other emotion. And during that good grief camp, I went to go pick him up one day, and one of the mentors, the adults in the room there, she said, "Can I speak to you?" And she told me that Drake got up in front of this class of 20 kids and adults and just poured his heart out about his dad and all things that he could remember, and he was just crying, and I just told her, and she looked at me kind of weird when I said this, but I said, thank God. I said, because he's never shown any emotion, and for him to get that out of his system, to get that part of grief out was so important. And the other kids, they also had similar experiences to that, but TAPS creates this safe space, for the kids to get up and be honest, to talk at things that they probably would not have ever talked to me or to their mom about. So it's very powerful. There's a lot of stories in that
It
organization.
sounds like a very important organization, and I can't imagine at 4 years old being able to process such loss and to be able to find an environment and people to help
Yeah,
and to understand so that he can have that place to let it all out is it's so important.
yeah, yeah. And the fact he did it in front of a crowd, his sister was in the same class that year with him, and they said that, after, as he told them and stuff, that his sister came up and gave him a hug, and then pretty soon all of the kids in the group just came around him and hugged him and, let him know, you're not alone. And because they were all feeling losses as well of different people in their lives. So that that program helps the kids to know that they're not alone in their grief. They're not the only ones that lost a parent or lost a loved one.
The most
So,
difficult
yeah, it's been,
the most difficult challenge of going through such crisis and loss is that feeling of isolation or being alone. And the alleviation of that can be so incredibly uh, healing for people to identify with others and to hear their stories and be able to tell their own stories. I'm glad that there's programs like TAPS around for that.
yeah,
Do you know of any programs outside
Yeah,
for civilians, for outside of the military? Are you aware of many programs?
I was just gonna say, I've looked, for parents, there's Compassionate Friends. And I went to a friend of mine invited me to they do a candle service of some sort in December, and she said they were having that at her church. So I went to it, and it was only me and this other lady who lost the very young child to cancer. And so it was like, not to say that they don't support people who lose adult children, but it was awkward, and I was like, I need to get out of here because it's not working, So, I don't know, I've looked, I just have not been able to find, um, TAPS has retreats for women and men and parents and that kind of thing. And I went on a women's retreat in Sedona, Arizona. And it's important to note that because of their donors that they get, all I had to do was provide myself transportation to Phoenix, and then everything was taken care of. The housing, the meals, everything. And we worked for 4 or 5 days. There was 41 of us that worked through our grief, and we were all suffering different types of grief. Of course, some had lost husbands, and so it was the most eye-opening week that I've ever spent since my son died, and it opened up. I don't know if it opened my heart, but I was certainly more receptive to accept a passion and to get some direction, for for my life after. And this was in 2019. It's the same year that I started improv, and just felt this release. It's the same year that I went and took suicide prevention training, and then I created a suicide prevention pitch that I took out to my community and talked to Rotary groups. I talked to churches. I talked to anybody who would listen, to get the message out about how rampant suicide is amongst our population, not just for the military, but just in general. So, yeah, it's,
I can understand that. Another thing that you'd mentioned to me earlier when we spoke about a message you're trying to get out is that the difference between saying someone died by suicide as opposed to committed suicide. And there are very important distinctions.
mhm.
Would you mind walking us through the importance of this shift in semantics and labeling?
Yeah. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, AFSP.org, has a lot of information about suicide. They have a media kit for journalists who want to report on suicide. They have recommendations, and they do address the terminology of died by suicide as opposed to committing. And it goes back to a time where the stigma of mental illness has gotten to where it's less, but back then it was thought, that it was something that someone did purposely, aside from any kind of mental illness or anything. And now that they have done, there's so much information out there on the studies they've done on suicide, lost survivors, suicide attempt survivors, and it starts with a mental illness, and it's a piling on of different frustrations in your life that, whether it's job loss or anything, it's complex. It's not simple. It's not, oh, well, they, you'll hear of like a criminal will, or someone accused of something will die by suicide. And it's, oh, he just wanted to get out of jail time. Well, does that make sense? I mean, who really wants to die? I mean, if that's your options, go to jail or die. I don't think a lot of people would do that, but it's the other perhaps unknown things that come into your life that cause you to get to that brink, and then once you go over the edge, it's hard to come back.
It's
So,
definitely
so we say died by suicide.
it's an
Yeah.
aggregation of factors. And I think it's incredibly powerful, your message, to be cognizant of the different language used, because cutting out the shame and the guilt
Mhm.
of victims of this is, as you said, it's much more prevalent than we realize. It's much bigger in scope, the amount of suicides a year, and to criminalize it or
Yeah.
blame a victim is not an okay approach. And I think it's very important. And as you said, beliefs and ideals about mental illness and our mental health are changing and shifting. And hopefully we're getting away from
Mhm.
placing blame or looking at it as a character flaw or a weakness. Um, and like to avoid something, like you just gave the example of avoiding going to jail, or
Yeah.
it's things that seem
Yeah.
logical to a lot of us, but there's a big portion of the population that doesn't quite understand that. And even a lot of
Yeah. Mhm.
victims of suicide loss, or survivors of suicide loss, I've heard, some people blame those that have died that way, and it's hard to see.
Mhm.
But I can't understand someone's grief in that specific situation, other than understanding grief in general. Um, but it's an important
Mhm.
message to give out, and I think that's wonderful that you're doing. Did you happen to? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. It's a well, I was just gonna say it's a lifelong grief, that you carry. I lost a friend because she was giving me the, oh, you need to get over it. It's been X years, you need to get over it, type of thing. And, the lack of understanding or any kind of empathy, it's like, this is a lifelong thing. And, um, the TAPS has said, however deep your love was for the person is the deep depth of your grief. And the mother child, or parent child relationship is one of those really deep relationships. Um, so I'm saddled with this, but I tell you, the people that I've been able to meet, the things that I've been doing, um, uh, because Damien died, have been fantastic. I mean, the doors that have opened for me to have my message out. The people I've met who get me at TAPS, they when you go to one of their seminars or their meetings, everybody's a lost survivor, and it creates this safe space. The first time I took my grandkids to one, we had checked in, and then we were sitting waiting for the first dinner, and my granddaughter looked at me and she said, "Can we come to this again next year?" And we literally had done nothing except get our swag bag, from the desk. It creates that safe space, and that's so important.
Probably right out of the gate, the very beginning of the proceedings really set the tone for it, and that's very important.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, the lady who founded TAPS is Bonnie Carroll, and she founded it because her husband died in a military accident, and she was trying to find some kind of support, and with the group that was there with her, she was in Alaska and was able to create this group, and that was in the 90s. I think that she started that 95 or so, and it's still going strong
Oh, that's great.
today. So
It sounds like that organization can
yeah.
provide a lot of hope to a lot of survivors.
Mhm. And they have information that is available to the general public. And, of course, there's a portal for us that join in it, but there's a lot of information on uh, suicide prevention, suicide after suicide loss that is available, for people to go find on their website, which is taps.org. So,
Taps.org. I'll get these references from you
mhm.
after the interview, and I'll make sure I display them during the interview so that people know
Okay.
where they can find help and support. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd
What
be great.
advice might you have for someone that doesn't have the
Yeah.
support that they need right now to help them maybe take that step to finding?
There's always professional counselors, therapists that you could um, find that would help. There's grief support groups. I think a lot of funeral homes have different classes, if you will, meetings and stuff to talk about grief. Um, it's important to find a person to listen to because I learned that there's different types of friends that you get in grief. There's the one that just wants to take you out, to places. They don't want to talk to you about your grief, but they're just as important because they get you out. I had a friend of mine. She had tickets to a play, and she said, "Would you like?" She just called me out of the blue. It wasn't a person that I would do something social with, but she called me and said, "I've got an extra ticket. How about you go with me?" And so I did that, and we never talked about my son. It was just kind of a escape type thing. Um, if I ever get this book written, that might help a little bit. So, if I ever get the book published and out there to I write it from, being a military mom, but I feel it's pertinent to anyone who's had a whatever kind of traumatic loss, and are in traumatic grief that they might have. So it's well resourced. I'm very careful. That's probably the engineer in me to not put so much opinion, or if I have an opinion, I go and find a resource to back it up, because it is important, and people do lose their lives if they don't get the help that they need and support. So, so yes, I promise I will do that.
Well, it sounds like
I
you're
did
well on
just
your
want to
way to.
mention that my grandkids They are surviving and thriving, today. So, it's been a real bumpy road as a family. So we've had times where we've separated and times where we come back, and it's just um, I'm the only one in the family besides the kids that has actually worked on my grief, and it really shows in the other members of the family that choose not to do that. So I'm a firm believer in support groups and getting support and recognizing when you need it. That's part of busting down the stigma. And I will gladly tell anybody that I've been to a number of therapists, and I call them up and, I'm feeling kind of weird right now. I need to, go get the oil changed, so, and
Yeah.
I'll probably
Yeah.
need that throughout the rest of my life, just little sessions, so.
It makes perfect sense. What would you say to someone that isn't realizing that they might need some support or help? What are some of the signs that someone who maybe thinks, I'm okay, that they might be able to realize within themselves to maybe take that step?
No, I think you have to be really careful about that. And from what I understand, a lot of the problem I have with if someone does seem suicidal is that the mental health community's stance is you have to wait for them to come to you, and a lot of them don't know resources. They don't know where to turn. They do need some guidance, and I'm like, well, if somebody has a heart attack, what happens? You call 911 and they get help. You don't ask them, oh, you've had a heart attack. Do you want help? And it's just when it comes to mental health, I don't think we still know what to do. I've had people tell me that they feel good. My ex-husband, my Damien's dad, he said, well, I think I'm in a really good place right now. And I wanted to just tap him. And so he stumbled a little bit and say, okay, you're in a different place now. How do you feel? You know, so there's that laughter coming up, but it's a traumatic loss, and it I feel I'm in a good place most of the time, and that's about all I can take responsibility for. So,
Right. It's definitely a hole that's left that is never filled. As you mentioned, it's something that's with you always and will
mhm,
forever be there.
mhm,
But learning how to navigate it and being self-aware and understanding your own grief and your own needs for healing is very, very important.
mhm,
And we have fought for a long time in this society to be able to recognize our own mental health needs of others, and
mhm,
what it means and what
mhm,
it doesn't mean.
yeah,
And unfortunately, it seems to take a great amount of suffering for some to go through to teach the rest of us how to navigate at times.
mhm.
And important work.
Well, and
Mm.
and everybody grieves differently, just like everybody loves differently. It's there's no one rule for grieving. And I think a lot of people think that, and that was where my peer mentor came into play was, well, I feel like I should be doing this. And she's like, oh, no, no, you need to stay on this path, because this is what I did. And, and things. Um, so yeah, um, it's a trip.
Mm. Certainly is.
Takes
A
a lot of,
lot of winding road.
yeah, a lot of patience, a lot of, breathing deep, and, so I go to I have a friend who was in TAPS, and she provides for us a yoga session on Sunday mornings in Kundalini yoga, which is more about energy transfer and things, but she covers a lot of grief things and during our sessions, and that's also contributed to my growth and resilience. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yoga has been a very, very helpful practice for my own life. And it's helped me navigate a lot of tough things.
Hmm.
And I think it's very important connecting the mind, body, and spirit, whatever you see it to be.
Hmm.
Um, and being present with that helps us really realize what's going on inside and
Hmm.
realizing, well, I'm not okay, but that's okay that I'm not okay. And there's
Yeah.
steps that I can take. I think they're really great. Mm.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes a hug's all you need, you know. And a lot of times
Sometimes
after
it is.
I was still working when he died, and there were just times I would see somebody that I worked with, and maybe I hadn't seen them since Damien died, and it was like no words, just hug, you know, and the power of that for both people is just, you know, um, just uh, it's very powerful. So,
I think that's an excellent point for people that struggle with, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to support. I don't know what words to have. Well, right there, sometimes it's just a hug or
mm-hmm.
the effort to lend an ear,
Yeah.
the effort to be there, to just show up because in situations, there are no words. I find myself even just listening as you explain your story and all you've gone through, and
Hmm.
there's nothing I can add. There's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can
Yeah.
um
Well, I have a friend who, after Damien died, and we'd been friends already for, I don't know, 20 years, I guess. And, but she started texting me every morning and just starting with a good morning and, what are you doing today? And, it's been almost 13 years since he's gone. And she still texts me, every morning. There's been a few mornings when both of us have been on trips or something like that, where uh, communication is just hard. But for the most part, I'd say she's probably 90% has been texting me every morning. And it's something that, if I get busy, I kind of forget about. But by the end of the day, I'm like, oh, she didn't text me, or I didn't text her back, and so it's been a help. So,
to have that consistency and stable relationships and friendships around is so incredibly helpful on that journey.
yeah,
On any journey, really, to
yeah,
have those people in your lives.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story with us. Um, you've had quite an adventure throughout what you've just the brief bit that you've been able to share with us today. And I'm really, really grateful. Um, I'd like to ask you a question very similar to what I ask at the end of every interview.
Hmm.
Um, but frame it in a way we're all going through a lot of grief and suffering in our lives. I don't think very few people, if any, that are avoiding that on this earth. What would your message be to humanity if you could talk to everybody at once about dealing with grief, sorrow, loss, hurt, confusion, fear, all of that that we all go through from time to time or many days in a row or years on end, all the time? What would your
Yeah,
message be to all of us suffering?
yeah. I would say be kind, be kind to one another. I had to really make um, an effort to not jump at, someone saying thing, because my mind was so messed up that when someone might just say hello and it's like, well, what do you mean about that? And so I had to really make a conscious decision to, okay, I know what was said, but I have to process that. And especially at work, you can't jump on somebody just for, asking regular question or taking issue over a design issue, of some sort. Um, and then there's an organization that raises awareness of military suicide and among veterans, and it's called Till Valhalla, and they fundraise through a line of clothing. They have T-shirts and sweatshirts, and one of theirs that I actually own, it says "Be kind" on the front, and on the back it says "Everyone is going through a battle that you know nothing about." And it
Absolutely.
just that when I wear that out in public, I get a lot of, where did you get that shirt? I need that shirt, and it's a lot of people hurting out there. And I believe that even the most evil of people have an inherent good side about them. And it's really hard to see. They really hide it really well. But
Yeah.
I think if you can just be kind, people in retail and, medical and, all the things where they have to be front facing to the public and stuff. And they've got hard jobs and they may not be getting paid for it. And, when people want to throw fits, with them and stuff, it's like, back up, shut up and back up and, and then think about how you're going to treat this person. But that would be my
I like it. It
advice.
takes a lot of it takes a lot of strength and mindfulness and self-awareness to continue to be kind.
Mhm,
Um, Especially in areas where we realize, well, that jerk over there that's caused me some inconvenience or has caused me a hassle also has a backstory.
mhm,
And our lives manifest in many different ways, and nobody walks the same journey.
mhm,
And it's important, like you said, even the most evil seeming among us. We didn't meet them 20 years ago. There's always tipping points. There's always things that just pile on top of each other and hide that goodness that can be in anyone inherently.
mhm,
And I think the message that you have, organizations that are trying to help people, our mental health awareness in the society as it improves, um, if we can hold compassion even for the what we think are the worst among us,
mhm.
we can hold compassion for anyone and
Yeah.
to be kind no matter what. And that takes a lot of courage because our immediate knee jerk reaction is to lash out, fight back, and of course there's importance to boundaries and realizing what's healthy to have around or not. But to be able to hold at least that moment of understanding of, there's goodness in that person too.
Mhm,
Or at least at one point there was until it got covered by so much hurt and trauma
yeah,
and damage and disappointment and
mhm,
crisis after crisis, that it gets lost even to the person that we think doesn't have it.
yeah,
And so we just have to hold that space so that maybe it can reignite. It can maybe bring some healing to even what we feel are our enemies.
mhm.
And
And
I
it
think
can
that's a
be
good
done
message.
in just small amounts of movement, like going through a drive-through and asking the cashier or the person that gives you the food, "How are you doing? You having a good day?" And, doesn't cost anything to ask them,
Right.
and
Right.
a lot of times they smile back like it's the first time they've had somebody not just, pushing money at them to pay for their order and get on their way.
Right. Sometimes we just need to be heard and seen and
Yeah.
understood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those are wise words. Thank you very much, Connie. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate I always like an opportunity to talk about suicide prevention and awareness. There is a hotline. Number is 988. If if you know somebody who you feel is suicidal, call the number. If you feel like you're in a very dark place, call 988. You can text it. So get help that's out there and don't be afraid to get help because people love you. And the darkest of times, you think that they don't, but there's always someone out there who would miss you if you were gone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everyone is worthy of that consideration and knowing that they are loved and that help is around the corner if they seek it.
Mm. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time, your conversation, your comedy, your heart. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate it.
All right. Hope to see you soon, Conni.
Thanks.
Did you get planted on farmersonly.com, but love didn't bloom? Are you a filthy little sinner, no longer delighting in all the premarital fornication on Christian Mingle? Did you find plenty of something fishy somewhere else? Try the Rainbow Connection dating app. Swipe right for your type of weird.
Am I gainfully employed? I'm in a bit of a transition. I had a podcast, but I had a meltdown on air and a robot replaced it.
So they claim that which is divine is ineffable. But I think I'm pretty effable, don't you?
What am I into? What am I really into? You. Taking a lint roller from the top of my head to the tip of my toes. But first, you have to roll it in your hands to get the tape all warm and sticky.